Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. I'm always happy to have you. If this is your first time here, I hope you see something that you like. My name is Penny and this is Little by Little. In today's video, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent. I had posted a tutorial a couple of months ago. I think it was the baby grand piano. And a very kind lady by the name of Linda made a lovely comment about the piano and then asked if there was a possibility of my maybe doing a tutorial for a typewriter. Now, I was intrigued. I have never done a typewriter before, but it sounded like it could be a lot of fun and interesting, and so I decided to give it a shot. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new segment for the channel for special requests. So if you have something that you've been looking for and haven't been able to find, or you're looking for a certain version of something, drop a comment below. I can't promise I'll do all of them, but from time to time, if I find one that I think is interesting and also within my skill set, I love a good challenge, so who knows, the tutorial might just show up here on the channel. Having said that, we're going to get started on our typewriter, and a big thank you to Linda for the suggestion. Before we can start putting this together, we have to make these two side pieces, which are your pieces marked B. So if you want to take the pieces that you have, and we're going to make some measurements on here so that we get the right shape cut. The first measurement we're going to make is in the upper right corner. So we're going to come in 3 millimeters from the side and down 3 millimeters from the top. And once you have that measured, we're actually going to round out that corner so that you have a quarter circle. Our next measurement coming in from the right hand side, we're going to make a measurement at 12 millimeters and at 19 millimeters. On the bottom of the piece, you're going to come in again from the right hand side and make one measurement at 19 millimeters. On the left hand side, you'll make two measurements, one at 2 millimeters from the bottom and the second one at 5 millimeters from the bottom. And one final measurement on the right hand side at 5 millimeters from the bottom. Now I'm going to draw a line between those two 5 millimeter marks. And another line joining those two marks that you made from top to bottom at the 19 millimeter mark. Now we're going to draw a line from the top of the 12 millimeter mark down to the center of the 19 millimeter mark. Then we'll draw another line from that center point where we just finished down to the 2 millimeter mark on the left hand side. Now you should have the basic shape for the side of the typewriter, and you can cut away that section on the upper left hand side as well as that quarter moon shape on the right. You'll need to make two of these, and then once you have them cut, I would hold them together and do some sanding around the edges so that you make sure that they are the same size. Our other prep piece will be piece number C. This is going to be the area where the keys would normally come up on the typewriter. So basically what I did was I just found the center point of this piece, and then leaving a small gap of about 2 millimeters, draw a diagonal line down each way, and I went about 4 millimeters down and then just drew a curved line to join them at the bottom. Then using my X-Acto knife, I just went in and cut that area out. And all I can say here is it's a very small area, so go slow with your X-Acto knife. If you have to pass over the wood more often, just to be gentle, but you should be able to take that out of there. Then I've taken this little sanding stick that I have and just gone in and just kind of cleaned up those edges. If you're still with me, the hard part is over. Now we just need to start putting it together. So I'm going to put my sides in first. So these two sides are going to go on the shorter end of piece number A. So I'm just applying this on top of piece A. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Next, we're going to bring in piece D. So this is going to go kind of on the front of the typewriter, but back behind where the keys would be. So you just need to put glue on the two short ends of that piece. And that's going to sit right in this area. So this is on that slanted portion of the sides, and it should fit right inside of those two pieces. We're going to install that piece number C next, and that's going to sit right behind the piece you just put in. So again, we're just going to put some glue on the two shorter ends of that side. And you're also going to put some glue on the bottom side of that piece as well. So this is the side opposite to where you've done the cutout. And then we're just going to slide that piece in between those two side pieces, just like the other one, and then right butted up against piece number D. I'm putting in piece F next, and all this is going to do is just block that gap in behind where the keys will be and the inside of the typewriter. And then we have piece G, and this little piece is going to come right across the front, right in front of where the keys will be. So we'll go ahead and add a little bit of glue here, just along those three edges on the front of the typewriter, and then we'll just lay that piece G right on the top. Even though I love to use wood and I use it in most of my projects, there is a downside to it, and that is that there's a lot of gaps and cracks where you've joined the wood together. So I don't want this typewriter to look like it's made out of wood, obviously. So I'm going to take some wood filler now, and I'm just going to fill in some of these gaps and cracks so that it has a smoother finish. So when you're using wood filler, it's actually really easy to use, and I know that there are people that use certain tools to do that. I find it's just easier to use my fingers. But all you have to do is just kind of lay it and push it into wherever those gaps are. It dries very quickly, it sands beautifully, and then you can paint over it and you'll never know that that wood filler is there. Now I normally give that wood filler a good 25-30 minutes to dry, but it really depends on how thick you've put it on there. But once it's dry, then you can just take some very fine grained sandpaper and just go over it then and sand off all of that excess. And it, like I said, sands beautifully. Now that everything is sanded and nice and smooth, I'm going to take this opportunity to do a little bit of painting before I go any farther. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint this area black. This is where the keys are going to sit. And then I also want to paint the inside of the typewriter black so that if you can see down into that little cutout area, it won't look like wood underneath. For the outside of the typewriter, I picked this kind of vintage-y, turquoisey blue color. It seems to me that when I was young and actually had a typewriter, that this was very close to the color that I had. Make sure you get in that little cutout area as well. For piece number E, which is the back of the typewriter, it's actually going to be painted black on one side and blue on the other. You can see that I'm leaving about 1 millimeter all the way around 3 sides. That's so that when I glue it onto the back of the typewriter, I'm gluing wood to wood instead of paint to wood. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue that piece onto the back of the typewriter, and we'll put the black towards the inside. I want to create an illusion of having those actual metal keys inside the typewriter. So what I've done here is I've just cut a thin strip of some very light cardstock, and I've marked off about 5 millimeter segments. Then I'm just going to go in and fold it like an accordion. You won't need the whole strip of paper. I think I did about 8 folds in total. Once you've got those folded, then just take a little bit of glue and just dab it onto the back and just kind of fold that over and around so that you've actually got one solid piece on the one side. Just like that. And then you can cut off your excess. Once that glue has dried, you can take your X-Acto knife and just start opening up the folds on the side that you didn't glue. You should end up with a little fan, much like the pages of a book. Apply just a tiny bit of glue on the very edge of that fanned out area. I'm going to glue that little piece in that cutout area with the opening part of the fan towards the front of the typewriter. You might have to hold that there for a few seconds just to give that glue a chance to set up. Now I'm just going to go in with a little bit of silver paint just to make the top of that paper look like metal keys. To make some keys for the typewriter, I've just cut off some pieces of some round toothpicks. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I want to tell you that I did this and then I took them all out and redid it a second time because I really wasn't as careful as I needed to be with the length of the keys. Some were too long, some were too short, and the whole thing just kind of looked wonky. Then I went ahead and painted them all black. To make the letters for the keys, I just went into Google Images and just pulled up typewriter font, and then I downsized it as small as I could make it. I have this little tiny pair of hole punch, and I just went over each letter and punched it out. Those little letters are so tiny, I don't know that it really makes a difference, but I'm trying for as much realism as I can here. So next I'm just going to glue those painted posts onto that black area in front of the typewriter. So I've kind of alternated. In one row I would put maybe 11, the next row 10, and then 11 again, and then 10. And ultimately I ended up with 4 rows of keys and then the space bar. At this point, I was starting to doubt my sanity because it was so tedious to get these little posts on there. So hopefully you can tell here that for each row that I added, I staggered the keys just a little bit. So these are the keys without the actual letters on them yet. So I'm just going to go in now and I'm just going to paint the top of each of the keys just in case the paper has a little bit of an overlap where you can see through it. I don't want it to look black underneath. Then I just cut a very thin piece of wood and I'm just painted the top of it white, and I'm going to add it on the bottom underneath all of those keys to act as a space bar. I'm going to go ahead and start adding these letters. So just applying a tiny dab of glue to the top of the key first. And then that top row will be all of the numbers, 1 through 0, and then probably just put a little mark on the final one. I don't know, whatever comes next beside the O. And then you can pick up your little piece of paper and just lay it on top of that key. I really struggled trying to get them to lay down there straight. That was part of the reason why I had to redo it in the end as well. But eventually I got them to look at least halfway straight. For the roller, I'm just going to be using a BBQ skewer. So I'm just going to start by cutting off a piece that's almost exactly the same width as the typewriter itself. I'll paint this piece black as well. Then I attach to each side a tiny little silver seed bead. While I was printing out the letters for the typewriter keys, I also printed out this tiny little form letter. It's so small that you can't tell what it says, so it really doesn't matter. I just found one on Google Images. Now if you lay that letter face down on the top of the typewriter, about halfway between the right and left, you can use your wood dowel then to push that piece of paper down into the typewriter. Once I had it in the position that I wanted it, then I just added some glue to keep it all into place. Once I had the paper in place, then I added just a little bit more glue on each end and glued it down to the typewriter. Next, I needed to add a lever to move the carriage from the right back to the left. So I just cut this out of some very thin cardboard. This is the kind of cardboard that cereal boxes are made out of. And I just cut it to a shape that I thought looked like a lever. And then I'm just going to glue it onto the side. I did paint that little lever silver before I glued it on. I have one final little detail to add, and that's that little silver bar that sits on top of the paper. So you can use a little tiny piece of wire if you have it, but I'm going to be using this nail art tape. This tape has adhesive on one side, so I'm just going to cut off a piece the same width as the typewriter, and I'm just going to lay it across the top of the paper. Now, I got this little nail art tape from Temu. I think it was like $3, and I got like 6 or 7 different colors. I was going to use it on my nails, although it's a little fancy schmancy for me, but it does work really well for some of these miniatures, just for adding that little bit of extra detail. And then of course you can just cut off the excess. I realized at this point that the front looked really bare. There should probably be a logo there. So I just went back to those little tiny pieces that I printed and just cut off a few words off of one of them. Again, it doesn't really matter what it says. It's too small to read anyway. But by just cutting off that little tiny bit of writing and then gluing it to the front, it looked like it had a logo on it. And here we have our finished typewriter. Well, this brings us to the end of this tutorial. Thanks again, Linda, for the idea. I hope you like the typewriter, and I will see you all next time. Bye for now.